when Russia invaded Ukraine a few years ago, that's when my business took a real hit because my main client came under sanction, and then the next one, and it was like, a set of dominoes going down one after another. So I had a lot of stuff to pay. I could no longer transact because these clients were under sanction, and it was almost 90% of the business I lost in literally 2-3 weeks.
Ooh.
So it was quite it was quite painful. It's one of them things where you look at what you're doing, right? And you can either cry into your coffee, or you pick yourself up and think, how can I use the skills that I've used or built previously and do something else, or carry on and try to rebuild it again.
So why did that happen? Did it have a connection to the Ukraine and Russia's invasion of the Ukraine?
Yes, it did. Yeah, because my clients were and businesses that were deemed to, I don't know, provide things in industry that would benefit, I don't know, the Russian economy, money, things like that. So first client came under sanction, then I was providing to the family as well under different contracts. Then different members of the family came under sanction, and so it was quite an impact to me over a short space of time.
Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people from around the world say, yeah, we know where Canada is. In British Columbia on the West Coast, right? Right. And then we have this big city in British Columbia called Vancouver. Well, we are 500 miles north of Vancouver, or 800 kilometers, which puts us in the center of British Columbia. North, south, east, west. And it's a city of about 80,000 people, about 120,000 in the region. It is blessed with nature. Within 50 miles, we've got 100 lakes all around us, lots of timber, lots of trees, lots of wildlife, black bear, grizzly bear, caribou, deer, wolves, you name it, we have it, living in harmony with nature. Today, a very, very interesting podcast. It is with a fellow from the UK. His name is Shaun West. He's a business coach, consultant, and TEDx speaker. Shaun West is a result-driven business coach, passionate about helping organizations achieving sustainable growth, and he leveraged his background as a former paratrooper and security professional. Shaun, quite a background. Welcome to the show.
Hi, John. Oh, thank you very much. It was interesting hearing you talk about Canada also. I think one of the stories that I tell, being a former paratrooper, when I first joined the military, I had never actually been on an aeroplane. So the first time I got in a plane, I jumped out of it. And I jumped out of a plane for a number of years. And the first time I ever landed in a plane was in Canada in 1999. So, yeah, it was interesting to hear you talk about Canada.
What place?
God, I can't remember where I flew into. I can't remember where we flew into, but it was a exercise with the army, and we were based in Wainwright.
Oh, yes.
Thanks.
Yes.
4 weeks out there. Then we had spent time in Calgary, Edmonton. But yeah, we had a great time.
Yeah. So now myself, I was born in Holland, and I spent 2 years in the Air Force, drafted in Holland. So that's one of the things that I did too, is part of what I did, special forces for the Air Force. I wanted to be a pilot, but anyway, so they put me in special forces. I don't know why, but anyway, it's very interesting, including jumping out of the plane, quite an experience. So tell us something. No, tell us about yourself, Shaun. Are you born in eastern part of UK?
So I was born in the northeast of England in a town called South Shields. So most people know Newcastle would be the nearest city.
Okay.
Hence the thick accent. Sounds a little Scottish, right? So I hope you can understand me.
It does. And so you got your training there as well?
No, so I joined the military. I think becoming a paratrooper, I leave home at 16 to join. And we went to a number of different, was a place called Litchfield, where I started my training. Then we went to Catterick, so it was the infantry training centre before going to my unit in Aldershot, joining my battalion, which was 2 Para, the 2nd Battalion, the Parachute Regiment.
Okay.
And when I went there, I'd done a number of tours, Northern Ireland, Afghanistan, Sierra Leone, Macedonia. So a number of good experiences working with like-minded people in the military, and
So
thoroughly enjoyed my time there.
how long were you in the military?
So it was just under 9 years
Yeah.
as a paratrooper. I also wanted to go and do, well, I wanted to do Pathfinder selection at the time, which was a specialist unit outside of the parachute regiment. And when I went, I got picked up for high tone deafness hearing, so I couldn't do what I wanted to do. So at that
Okay.
point, I left the military, and at the time when I left, which was the end of 2005, there was a lot of things going on in the world. Things going on in Iraq, Afghanistan, all of these
Yeah.
kinds of places where you went as a soldier anyway. So when I left, I went out to hostile environments as a bodyguard. And it was like still being in the military. I loved the military. I never wanted to leave. And when I stepped into this career, it was like working with like-minded people. So it still felt like I was doing a similar sort of role, and leveraging the skills I built in the military as well.
Yeah. So now what you did once you stepped out, you went into security services?
I did, yeah. So I became a bodyguard, initially going out to Iraq, then Afghanistan. And the time when I was having my second child, my daughter, um, I decided when my partner was about to give birth, I flew back from, I think it was Kabul to Dubai, and then from Dubai to the UK, and I was on the flight, and I just decided I'm not going to come back out here. I It wasn't planned before I left, and I can honestly say it's people might say that sounds really strange, but when I was in them environments, I never felt any fear. It was excitement. You were doing your job. I fully enjoyed it. At the time when I came back, and I knew it was the last time, I was on the plane. I remember I was coming back to the birth of my daughter, and I ordered a whiskey on the Emirates flight, and I didn't drink whiskey. And I says to the flight attendant when she said a drink, I had a whiskey. I had a drink. I enjoyed it. I got another one, and I had another one. And whilst you think you don't carry anything, I felt excitement. I didn't feel any fear. But what I felt on the flight was, the relief, the weight of the world coming off your shoulders, just coming out of you. I was coming back. I still had my arms, still had
Yeah.
my legs,
Yeah.
and I've had friends that, weren't so lucky. And then when I came back from there, I set up, I didn't have a job. I just knew I was on my second child, and the strain it would put on the relationship at the time, keep going out to hostile environments would have been too much. So I didn't have a job to come back to, but I knew I would just make it work. And that's when I started working within the UK, Europe, and a little further afield.
So, but you went in the same field though and security, or what did you do?
Yeah. So there was a number of different sectors where I worked. So I was working in the celebrity market, protecting, sports personalities, music personalities, and the market which I eventually got naturally steered to, just my career went that way, was working with high net worth individuals, and it was high net worth Russian individuals. And I built my business serving, high net worth business, Russian business individuals and their families. And that was highly successful. And what I found was when I was, once you get that know, like, and trust with, one of the families, then you get the referrals, and you take on another family and another family. And because of the industries these guys work in, my business just grew organically through who I provided to. And then when Russia invaded Ukraine a few years ago, that's when my business took a real hit, because my main client came under sanction, and then the next one. And it was like, a set of dominoes going down one after another. So I had a lot of stuff to pay. I could no longer transact because these clients were under sanction. And it was almost 90% of the business I lost in literally 2-3 weeks.
Ooh.
So it was quite it was quite painful. It's one of them things where you look at what you're doing, right? And you can either cry into your coffee, or you pick yourself up and think, how can I use the skills that I've used or built previously and do something else, or carry on and try to rebuild it again.
So why did that happen? Did it have a connection to the Ukraine and Russia's invasion of the Ukraine?
Yes, it did, yeah, because my clients were and businesses that were deemed to, I don't know, provide things in industry that would benefit, I don't know, the Russian economy, money, things like that. So the first client came under sanction, then I was providing to the family as well under different contracts, then different members of the family came under sanction. And yeah, so it was quite an impact to me over a short space of time.
So what did you do?
So I started working for other people in the same industry. So whilst running my business, that was me moving the pieces as opposed to being the guy on the ground, being the operator. But what I'd done is I stepped back, started working for other companies, providing the services. And I kind of lost, I don't know, not the love of the industry. I loved the job. But, it was quite a big blow to lose what I did after I spent however many years I spent building it. And I decided I want to do something else. I'd always considered myself as someone who, was great at helping people. I had a good first impression when I met people. I've been successful in everything that I'd done on my career path. And I decided I'd want to do the same sort of thing. And I got into coaching with the aim of my niche being the security industry and helping people to either grow their careers or business in that space. And that's where I started out, helping companies in that space. And then it was January this year, I formed a new startup where I'm focusing on more small to medium businesses in different industries outside the security industry, because I feel building a business in any industry, the fundamentals are the same. It just has the different niches and nuances that are specific to that industry.
Makes it delicate if you're too much in one sector, as it already happened to you with Russia and the Ukraine. You didn't want to get caught back in the same situation, right?
Yeah, absolutely that. I think, and it's nice to work with. I think sometimes it's taking your set of skills, because in the security industry, a lot of the businesses, certainly in the UK, I'd say probably 70% of these businesses are run by people who are ex-military. And whilst ex-military, believe in teamwork and all of these things, they're probably the last people to ask for help. You believe you can do everything yourself. So, and I find when you go outside of the industry and target people outside, the set of skills that you bring to the table is a lot more valued.
Yeah, usually I have 10 different companies, and certainly I always I'll give preferences to people that have a military background for all those reasons that you just mentioned. It's like, even for myself, I feel that although I was drafted into the Air Force when I was 18, now I'm 84, so that was about 66 years ago. But I still do things that are military to me. I'm still very much military in the style of managing that I do in my companies. I like structure and predictability and all of that, so it certainly is, I look at it as an asset, very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're very driven. You're focused. You have goals, and when challenges come up, you find a way over them. Build a bridge or find a way around. You don't come to a stop.
Yeah.
And I think it is a very unique skill set for sure.
So now the thing that you did in the military is very hard on relationships and on families because you're gone
Yes.
so much. And then that is the one
Hmm.
part. The other one is a sense of anxiety on the part of your partners or your family around you. Every day there is something on the news about the war and people that got injured or killed. So there
Yeah.
is always that
Yeah.
anxiety.
Hmm. No, you're absolutely right. And I think when on the first task that I went to Iraq as a bodyguard, I lost a very close friend, and this was on my actually very first trip. And it was a unique situation because when you're in the military, you've got that that big support around you. It's a big support system, right? You've
Right.
got a lot of logistics support, things like that. And I was tasked with protecting a team of engineers in northern Iraq. And when the team went out, there was a big explosion, and one of the guys, a very close friend, he died. And I remember the team leader who was calling for support at the time, and they explained, a helicopter was going to come help with the casualties. And then there was a secondary explosion. And when the secondary explosion happened, they said, we can't come there. It's too hot. We're going to
Yeah.
have to, there's going to be a delay in getting there. And whilst we were waiting for the helicopter to come, unfortunately, my friend died. And one of the things that really brought home the difference between the military and being out in a country like that as a civilian was when the helicopter came. One of the guys who was injured, he went on board. They took him away. But when we carried the body of my friend to the helicopter, I remember the loadmaster stood out. He held out his hand. He explained, we can't take your friend. You're not in the military. You're a civilian contractor, so it's the responsibility of the company that you work for. And we had to place him in the back seat of our vehicle. And
Oof.
I remember getting back to the camp where we were staying, and it was just, I remember the gravity of the situation, and you think, what has just happened? And yeah, it's just that point where I realised, it's very different now when you're out on your own and you have to do your due diligence of the companies that you work for, because if you're working for a small outfit who, maybe doesn't have insurances in place or whatever it might be, you know, it could really impact your family, your kids, everything, because they could lose everything, right? So it's definitely doing the due diligence of who you're working for.
And considering, even as you go forward, fortunately, we just passed Remembrance Day, which is November the
Yeah.
11th here, and we
So
celebrate that
yeah,
every year. Obviously, it was
yeah,
on Monday. And,
yeah.
so for myself, I was born in Holland in 1940,
Hmm.
and that was during the war years as well. My
That's
mom and
correct. Yeah,
dad got married in 1938, were in love, and they lived in northeastern part of Holland, and the world was beautiful for them. They had a beautiful house, and my dad had a job in a lumber mill, and very quickly they had a boy and a girl, and then my mom was pregnant with me, and then the dictator Adolf Hitler decided to not only take over some of the countries in Eastern Europe, but also moved into Europe. And my dad was drafted into the Dutch army in April of 1940. And for 5 years,
hmm,
they would not know. The last time they saw him was when the bombing of Rotterdam, and for 5 years they wouldn't know if he lived or died. And so she was all
yeah,
on her own with three little kids. Then in November, I was born, and and so it was very, very difficult time for them. And then for
yeah.
me,
I can imagine.
I can still remember 1943, 44, hundreds of bombers overhead, and kind of visualize northeastern part of the Holland, the bombers coming from the UK, that direction, flying over the northeastern part of Holland and bombing the northwestern part of Germany, Bremen, Wilhelmshaven,
Yeah.
Kiel, Hamburg, all those places where there was infrastructure. And my mom would take us outside every night when there were hundreds of planes in the air. The sound of it I can still remember. And the reason that she did, she felt safer outside than inside. And in the distance, we could see the sky was red from the cities burning in the distance. And so I still remember that. And then the other part that I remember is 1944-45. It was the hunger year where the Germans had cut off all the food supply to places like Holland and other places, and we had nothing to eat. And my brother, my sister, and myself, every morning we'd go with gunny sacks into the railroad yards, picked up anything edible and burnable. And then the winter of 44-45 was the coldest on record. And I still remember the little room in the house that we kept warm with a little stove, and it was so hot in the front, so cold in the back. I still remember that part as well. And then I remember again looking at Holland, the northeastern part of Holland. Obviously the Allied forces landed in the summer of 1944, and Normandy pushed all the way through France, Belgium, the western side of Holland, and pushed them all the way out through the north where we lived. And things got pretty rough then. And we saw far too much that we should not have seen, far too many dead bodies, people getting shot. And then we were liberated by the Canadians April the 12th, 1945. And I still remember I was 5 years old, and I always knew from that point forward I would go, when I grow up, I would go to Canada, the land of my heroes, and that's where I was going to live. And so it took me till first I was going to go when I was 17, and then my parents wouldn't let me, and then I was drafted into the Dutch Air Force for 2 years, and then I went when I was 23. I wanted to go to British Columbia because I was going to build a lumber mill. And
I've read your
did you read it? Yeah.
no, I've read your story, and I think it's amazing. And I think there's a lot of just looking at what you've done is amazing. And I think one of the things you'll have worked with many like-minded people, right? When you were in the military, you've built your businesses, and what I find when I was working with security business owners, you find you'll work with a lot of people in the space that you're working who are really great operators. They're really good at their job. They're really good, on the tools, for instance, and whatever.
Yeah.
But when they come to set up a business, it's a very different set of skills that you need to learn. And you'll have been through this because you've done that yourself, right? You've built businesses.
Yeah.
And it's
right from the ground up.
Yes. Yeah, no, so it's really interesting, and I'd love to hear more about your journey in the lessons you've learned when you went through that, how when you've started your business, you've grew it, and you've stepped into other industries, really interested in that.
Yeah, so I came when I was 23. I wanted to go to Western Canada to the British Columbia, and so when I couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job, and I came to Vancouver. 4 days, 5 nights in the train across Canada. Can you believe it? It's a big country.
Yeah, it's a long trip.
And so I went to the immigration office in Vancouver, and I couldn't speak the language. So there was somebody who spoke German. I could speak some German. So I told him I wanted to build a lumber mill. He said, go to Prince George. That's where they're building lumber mills and plywood plants and all. And that's where I'm still now, 60 years later. And so I came on a bus 12 hours from Vancouver and landed here. I had my suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and I counted my money at least 3 times. I had $25.47. But I was going to build a lumber mill, but what I had lots of is attitude. No matter how tough it is, I always believe it's going to be better tomorrow. I avoid negative. I said, don't even come close to me. I believe positive. And then passion. Whatever I do, I give it 125%. Work ethic. I work harder than anybody. And even now, I still get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always make my bed, military, and then
Yeah.
and then I always think I'm late. And so started right from the back, from the cleanup man, blah blah blah. I have lumber mills and a number of other companies, but so it's the land of opportunity. But it is that background, Shaun, that gave me the foundation, and the other part is attitude, passion, work ethic, and what will follow is
And
success.
I think exactly what you said there when you moved over to Canada and you had a vision, right? You wanted to build the lumber mills, and only when you've got a vision can you create the plan to get there. And I think, I'm not a DIY guy, but if someone said to me, go and build a shed in your garden, if I don't have a picture of it, oh, I'd struggle to build it. When you can see a picture, then you can work a bit of a plan, right? And it's the same
Exactly.
with your business. If you have that vision, you can then start constructing the plan, you know, and making it happen. And I think it's exactly what you said. It's the taking action on that dream or that goal.
Exactly.
And the hard thing is maintaining that motivation and momentum that you had when you had that dream of starting your lumber mill or starting your business. People who start a business then 6 months down the line, they're struggling to, I don't know, get sales or get traction. That excitement, that vision that they had starts to wane, right? The motivation goes down, and that all of that intention that they had to do something, the intention is not going to get them there. You've got to keep that committed mindset, right? Keep taking the action, find a way to get past them challenges. And yeah, no,
Over
by everything you say there,
over
completely
50
resonates.
years, it'd be now 50 years that I started my companies. I came here 60 years ago, was a cleaner man, lumber piler, did all those kind of things, superintendent, and started with being a manager of a mill. And then I started my lumber company in 1975, 50 years ago. I have that company. I have actually 4 silos. The one silo is lumber manufacturing. The other silo is warehousing, distribution, logistics. The other one is real estate, residential, commercial, and industrial. And then the other one, very excitingly, is media. And I like the media part because I do books. I've written 5 books, working on my 6th one. And then obviously I love to do podcasting because can you imagine this, Shaun? That there we are sitting here. I'm sitting in central British Columbia. You're sitting at the other side of the world. I don't know what time it is for you, but it's after midnight. I know that for sure. And
Yeah, that's right. midnight.
and so there we are sitting here having a discussion like you're sitting next to me on my couch here and sharing our ideas. It is the changes in the media and virtual impulse in particular, that I started gradually first podcasting here or blogging locally, podcasting a little bit locally. Then COVID came, and I was working with one of the television stations here close by, and they said, you can't come in anymore because it's COVID. And then we said, what are we going to do now? I had an apartment downtown Prince George. Say, let's turn it into a studio and get the good equipment. And now I've
Yeah.
done 300, and you're in my podcast number 339, and where I am
Wow.
the host, and I probably have done 150 where I'm a guest. So probably 500 podcasts later with people from all around the world. And while we having this
Yeah.
discussion, we already know that tens of thousands, if not millions of people will watch us on podcast. and it is
Yeah, it's
amazing, and
crazy.
it's only at the beginning. It's going to get much larger.
No, I mean, the technology's grown so fast, right? I mean, and that's one of the good things that COVID brought, the the greater use of technology like this, where you can do this and speak to people easily across the other side of the world.
Yeah,
So that's one good thing that came out of COVID. Not very much good, but this
yeah.
is one of the good advancements that is being embraced.
Now, on the other hand, you're still fairly young compared to me. So what is your direction now? Are you still involved in coaching? You're an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
you're a business person. So, where do you go with your career as you go forward and looking at all the things that are happening around the world? And I'm sure in the UK, as it is in Europe and North America, everything is in transition and changing. And so what I do, and I'm sure you do, is I say, where do we go from here? What will it look like? Where do I fit in with my companies?
Yeah, so I do still focus on coaching. I still have my toe in the security industry. And that was something that I was trying to, I don't know, almost wind down a little bit and then focus on my coaching business that I started. But I found as I'm winding it down, more opportunities come. And because I am entrepreneurial, when they come up, you want to take on the opportunities. And my real focus now is the coaching business because I get a lot of pleasure out of it. Helping people, seeing them grow, seeing their business grow, and almost seeing them, the penny drop moments when you work with somebody. Because most people they know they've got the skills inside of them when they start their business. They've got that dream, they've got that passion, they know what they wanted to do. But when that motivation wanes, they just get less and they stop doing the things that they need to do to move the business forward. They're focusing on the wrong areas. And as soon as they bring someone in, a coach to work with them, and you can point these things out, an external set of eyes, it can really move them on. So that's where my focus is at the moment, building the coaching business. And I think, like any business you create, when you have a goal, it's how do you get there? It's the way that you think and the actions that you take. If you're
Right.
thinking glass half empty and you're thinking, oh, why is this all happening? Why am I not getting traction? That's where your energy is focused, right? And you're going to kind of stay there. Whereas if you think, look, I'm not getting traction, how about I try this? Is there something else I can try? Then you're looking at it just sparks different pathways, to get there. And it's just having someone help you unlock them, you know, can really bring people forward. And having
So,
that slice of luck as well.
right. So then you worked mainly in the UK, but the UK has gone through quite a few challenges as well politically. And then
Hmm.
Wales, Ireland, Scotland, and then Europe and the EU. And so you see all of that, and it's still very much in transition. A lot of stuff is
Hmm.
happening. Add to that Trump in North America, that's going to affect the
Hmm.
world. So, how do you see it going forward?
I don't know. There's the beauty of being a coach in the technology. A lot of my work can be delivered remotely. The work that I'm focusing on now, but now Trump has come in power. That is going to bring lots of change to the world. There's good change, bad change. I guess only time will tell. In my previous business, as I said, my market was high net worth Russian individuals. And unfortunately, a number of my clients came under sanction and things like that. You could find this time in a year's time, sanctions could be lifted, and then people come back wanting them services again in the UK. So I don't think we ever know what's going to happen. And I've done a talk recently. As, as strong as you think your business is, or whatever it is, there's always something that'll that can impact you, whether it's personal challenges like losing a loved one, or the global challenges like Ukraine, Israel, Brexit, all of these things. You might be onto a really great thing, something will happen in the world, and it's about having that resilience as a business as well, and resilience as a business owner. When something does happen, you find a way out, or a plan B if things don't go to plan.
Yeah, like in your case, where you've been exposed to Afghanistan, the Ukraine, and all those challenging areas, and then looking towards the Middle East and then Eastern Europe, including Hungary, which is kind of marginal underneath NATO, and and then Putin, and obviously, and then Scandinavia, and all of the changes there. So there is a lot of stuff going on that looks for a more coherent working together between Europe and North America, for one, I believe, and in particular, you think at some point the UK will re-enter the EU, or will, that was always a bit of a shock.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're stronger together, right?
Yeah,
And I tell anyone in when they're growing their business or career, it's to increase your chances of success in anything. It's building that community of people who inspire, people who challenge, and people who will support you, right? And when you're surrounded by that, it just makes you stronger, because you've got people to strive to be like. You've got people who are going to challenge you, so you're not running away,
yeah,
with things and getting lost in the idea that you're running with. And I think coming together, we're a lot stronger. And will we come back into the EU? I don't know. I guess only time will tell.
yeah. They're still part of NATO under that umbrella,
Yes.
for sure, which is very, very important. And NATO, as time goes forward, will get stronger. Looking at Finland, in particular,
Hmm.
joining, and hopefully at some point the Ukraine, and so. But at the same time, the I was spent part of my life in Holland up to the time I was 23. And
Hmm.
so I always looked at Europe from the Second World War forward. It was hard to
Hmm.
imagine, like, if I live in Holland, I can drive directly into a number of other countries. I don't even stop at the border. It's all
Yeah.
one, and including the UK, actually,
Yeah.
that I always kind of visualize it as Europe, and then together, free Europe, democratic Europe. And then the same applies likely to North America, looking at Canada, the United States, and
Yeah.
Mexico, having
Hmm.
different structures, but very close together as one unit.
Hmm. Yeah. No, totally agree. And I think when I look to the future, I do think we'll become part of the EU again. When that'll be, I have no idea. I don't think it's going to be in the next couple of years. It'll be a while, but I think eventually we'll come part. It certainly in some way, whether it's the same under the same terms as previous, I don't know. But I think there'll definitely be some joining up there again in future.
Yeah, and that it's nothing particular new. Like even in Holland and the Benelux, being Belgium and Luxembourg, we have gone through different structures, different
Hmm.
alliances, and some good ones, some not so good, but still, each one of those countries right now is has the challenge of, with immigration for one, as being a challenge for all of Europe, actually, including the UK, and then obviously that it appears like here in Canada, including British Columbia and the rest of Canada, we are moving politically more to the right and and less so to the left, or trying to find that balance in the middle. And but on the other hand, I say to a lot of people that I know, I do a lot of business in North America. Every time, if I fly a lot. I'm also a pilot, but I fly a lot commercially, and if I'm in British Columbia, in Canada, or the United States for that matter, and I look out of the window, I say, my God, it's paradise. We are so lucky if we compare ourselves to so many other countries in the world, the ones that you were in, Afghanistan for
Yeah.
one, and many of the other ones, but then looking at the Middle East, and then looking at Russia and the countries surrounding it, including the Ukraine, the challenges they are having are immense.
Yeah.
We're so lucky,
Yeah,
so
we are,
fortunate.
and sometimes we are, and sometimes people don't realize that. And things like going back to Brexit, a lot of people always strive for something else, and the grass is not always greener on the other side. We have to be thankful for what we have at times.
Yeah,
And certainly when you look at what's going on in the world now, I consider myself very lucky.
yeah. And then again, coming back to your career in the back, so the coaching, business coaching in particular, working with companies is always something that will always go on. There will always be a market for that, especially if you have the kind of experience and background that you have.
Mhm. Yeah, I think so. And like I said, I think earlier in the conversation, sometimes taking your skills and experience into another industry, certainly the background, the motivation, what you have as a former paratrooper. It's the way I explain to people when they say, "What do you do?" I'll explain, building a business is hard. When I became a paratrooper, it was hard. But the one thing we had there was, we had the instructors, the NCOs who were giving you that kick up the backside to get moving. You had the goal where to get to, and you were surrounded by like-minded people. You had people giving you the kick up the backside. And that's what I'm here to do with your business, and hold you accountable. And that's kind of how I sell myself to businesses. And because if you're a small business and you're a single owner, it could be a lonely place.
Yeah,
Things could be going wrong in your business, and not everybody's going to tell you because you're the boss. So
exactly.
sometimes you need that external set of eyes to come in and bounce their ideas off and increase that community that you have.
Yeah, especially if you have the discipline. And I find that even for myself, and that's why I said, even I spent only 2 years in the military, but I have very much a military type of mind that has to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
structure. That's the way it works. And, and that has to be a sense of urgency and a sense of, clearly the objective of our company. We must have goals and objectives in terms of strategic direction that we want to go, and then to involve consultants from the outside can be very, very helpful in a lot of cases to kind of look at that with a whole different perspective and give you better direction.
yeah. I think exactly what you've just said there. Having the goals, but having specific goals, and like you say, having a sense of urgency. So I think you need to have them specific goals, put a timeline on them, and measure what you're doing. Is what you're doing working? If not, what can we do differently? And having that timeline, that gives you that sense of urgency, or your team the sense of urgency to get that done.
So, where do you see opportunity in a general sense? If you look from your perspective, with your background, and then looking forward, it's I always look at where are the opportunities. One of the ones that we already identified is that media to me is one of my silos where I've been active.
Yeah.
I'm an author. I like that,
Hmm.
but also I do a lot of keynote presentations. But I really
Hmm.
like podcasting because I
Yeah.
I can touch many more people if I do a presentation, a keynote in the United States. It usually takes me 2 days to get there, do the presentation, a day to
Hmm.
come. So it takes a lot of my time, and a lot of times I'm not saying that I
Yeah.
still do that to a certain extent, but
Hmm.
I think the most effective way where the opportunities are virtual and working with
Hmm.
the world. And a lot of times, what I find is I'm working towards a platform that I want to start,
Hmm.
and I'm in the process of starting it. Probably we'll start it in the early next year, likely. And
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think that offers opportunity. And then other things relating to podcasting like we do is where
Hmm.
you raise your profile around the world,
Yeah.
and so YouTube and some of those vehicles immensely powerful, far beyond what
Hmm.
I had ever imagined, right?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Speaking one to many gives you a lot more traction, right? And when I got into the coaching industry, one of the things that I realized that I suffered from was I had a terrible fear of public speaking. And I realized to grow a coaching business. So when I was growing my security business, because it was in the close protection sector, a lot of that work, is highly confidential. Discreet discretion is of the utmost. So you're not standing on the private yachts and private jets taking photographs and selfies and all of this. It's done under the radar. But when I stepped into the coaching industry, it was very different. I had to let people know what I was doing. And one of the things I realized, I'm gonna have to get better at talking, at speaking, and in conversation. I can have them all day long. But one of the things, speaking in front of a crowd, and I joke, I had less fear in Afghanistan than standing talking to a room full of people. So one of the things I did, I joined, and I think you're also a Toastmaster, right? You've went through the pathways of Toastmasters I've seen from your profile. I joined Toastmasters, which I found to be amazing. And I think the one thing that helped break that fear down was just that exposure of getting up, right? And then you get that feedback from the people who's listening to your talk and it's turning that fear into almost excitement because when you deliver a talk, nobody wants to see you fail. They're all on your side. They're all behind you. And it's just the more you do it, the more exposure you get. It just chips away at that fear, right? So if it's up here, the more you do it, it just gets that little bit easier. And one of the goals I set myself, I think you mentioned earlier on, I delivered a TEDx in last month, which was an amazing goal for me because literally like 15 months before, I was terrified to stand in front of a room of people, and I set myself a goal of doing that. And what I did, I started applying for 10 a day every day with a view of getting one next year. And then when I got the opportunity to deliver one, I was like, wow, I'm gonna have to pull my finger out. And I went and delivered it. And, it was a great goal for me. It felt amazing. And the confidence you get from doing that means I know I can do it on a different platform, on a bigger stage. And that'll only help, growing that profile, the exposure, and will bring further opportunities, I'm sure.
Yeah, and at will, I know it will, Sean, is that as you probably already know, Somebody invited me to Toastmasters in 1990, and I said,
Wow.
"What do they do there?" They said, "Oh, it's communications." I said, "Is anybody going to ask me questions?" They said, "No, just sit there, watch it." So halfway through the meeting, somebody said, "Hey, John, tell us all about you." I said, "Oh, I'll never go back here." But I stayed there for 10 years, and I went to the top, which means a distinguished Toastmaster. And I've seen hundreds of people coming to Toastmasters, but I've never seen anybody as fearful as me. I could have crawled out
Yeah.
of there on hands and knees, but I stayed. And today I know I'm a very, very good presenter, and I still have anxiety a little bit because you have to. In order, if you want to be good,
Yeah.
you will always
Yeah.
have that. But I give presentations over and over in all kinds of different settings, and obviously, podcasting is one of those. Because, but people
Yeah.
ask me about Toastmasters. Toastmasters is not about speaking; it's about listening and to think on your feet and
Feedback.
respond to a comment and then listen to others and then give them feedback. These are the good points. These are the rooms for challenges, maybe a little bit,
Improvement. Yeah.
and then you leave as positive. And so it is an amazing, amazing organization with millions of people around the world, and I love it. And I say I have a bit of a cold, so and but I love it, and that
No,
it changed my
I,
world.
yeah, I totally agree. And I'd say exactly the same myself. And, and the fact it is all around the world in most regions, I would advise anybody who's has that fear or looking to grow their career. It's just a great skill, right? You're going to go there, you're going to meet people who are on a similar journey. And I think when you see them, what I describe it as actually, when I joined the British Army, they have, regional units. So I think people from the north would join the light infantry. You'd have the, I don't know, the Welsh Guards would be obviously Welsh, different regional units. But to become a paratrooper, people came from all around the world. So you were put in a trench with people that might have been a lawyer, to someone
Anybody?
who couldn't spell Bob backwards. It was literally you all of these backgrounds, and it just worked. It gelled.
Yeah.
It was amazing, and that's what Toastmasters like. You've got so many people from different backgrounds, but they're all on a similar journey. They're all wanting to improve, get better,
And
and
they
I've
and
got some
they
amazing friends there now.
and they will all support you, and that was the whole
Exactly
idea about
that.
it, right? So and but if I look back, a lot of times when I get into difficult situations, talking to bankers or business deals, that a lot of times if I have to make presentations, I say thank you, Toastmasters, because without
Yeah.
them I could not have done that. And then for leadership in the world, you have to be an effective and good communicator. A lot of good leaders are
hmm
not, and it adversely
hmm
affects their ability to be leaders.
Yeah, and it's one of the great frameworks that I learned actually when becoming a business coach was Donald Miller, who wrote the story brand, just a story brand book and Business Made Simple. And he talks about running a business and he uses the analogy of the airplane. I don't know if you've come across that, where the cockpit is the leadership.
Okay.
You know, as a business, as a plane, if you're getting on a plane, would you get on a plane if the pilot didn't know where he was going or what he was doing? Probably not. And it's the
No.
same. You are the pilot of your ship, of your business.
Absolutely.
If you can't communicate where you're going or know where you're going, then your team's not going to know either. And the other things he spoke about was the wings being the products and services.
Yeah.
And you had a left engine and right engine, which was the sales and marketing. And you've got to fire them up
Yeah.
for the plane to take off. And he spoke about the body of the plane, would be the overhead.
Yeah.
So if you've got, big fancy offices and lots of subscriptions and stuff that you don't need, you've got this big fat overhead. But if you've only got small wings, eventually that plane's going to come crashing down, and that in your
Exactly.
business.
Exactly.
So you've got to extend and marketing and sales and lose some of that overhead. And it just made sense to me, that airplane analogy.
No, I like it, Shaun. Shaun, this was an amazing podcast, and I really enjoyed it. The topics that, in particular, Toastmasters was very interesting, obviously. For all the people that are watching us from around the world, subscribe to us if you like what we are doing. If you want to see more discussions like this from people all around the world about all kinds of different topics, like us, share us. And again, Shaun, thank you very much for being on my podcast. And again, very much
welcome.
appreciated. Good luck, and we'll stay in touch.
Brilliant, John. Really appreciate sharing the platform. Amazing. Thank you very much.